On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks go to Salt Lake City and emerge victorious, but it was never easy on this Tuesday evening. Trae Young knocks down a 50-foot game winner at the buzzer to sneak out of there with a victory. We'll get into how this one unfolded and much more. All of that is coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1882 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday evening, deep into the night here into Wednesday. And today's podcast is sponsored by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. That includes YouTube. Please like this video as you are watching it and comment, etc., etc. Tell your friends about the show, and I definitely appreciate you listening to the podcast or watching it on this fine Wednesday. Broadly speaking, this is a wild one for the Hawks. We'll get into it. A 124-121 victory on the road in Utah to snap a 3-game losing streak for Atlanta. It was never easy. They were up pretty decently big in the first half. 16 points was the largest lead for Atlanta on a night without Jalen Johnson. And as I've covered in depth, and Hawks fans definitely know this, that nothing is a given right now for the Hawks without Jalen Johnson, when they struggled pretty badly without him. But he didn't play in this game, and the Hawks were able to get a win on the road. That is the rosy, optimistic framing of this game. It's a road win. Yes, it's a bad opponent. That's definitely worth acknowledging at some point on the podcast, but it's a road win, and there's nothing easy about that in the NBA. In the second half, it was all incredibly close. In fact, the Hawks, after leading big in that first half, never led by more than 7 points in the second half. They trailed several times in the second half, and it was a 5-point game or less on both sides for the entire fourth quarter. And then down the stretch, Utah actually had a heroic shot from Colin Sexton that tied the game in the final seconds, except for Trae decided to walk it off in memorable, artistic fashion. Trae was certainly the biggest story of this game even before that, with a 2020 game, his third of the season. But the walk-off made that all irrelevant. So, no matter what happens in the NBA, you win a game, it matters. I will give you all the context, all the nuance, all the detail on this podcast, but broadly speaking, the Hawks needed to win this game. I am not one that would ever assign must win to any game in January of an NBA season, ever. And I would have told you that, win or lose today. But it's a game where the Hawks probably needed to win. Like, they're on this road trip. You don't want to suddenly go, lose 4 games in a row, have a tough one coming up on Thursday as well. This is the quote-unquote easier game on the West Coast trip, and they win it. So that's the broad takeaway from the night. But as far as how this game unfolded, it was a good offensive game for the Hawks. It wasn't an elite one. It wasn't unforgettable offensively, except for the game winner again by Trae. And his individual play was tremendous in this game. But they had a 123 offensive rating. Like, they were really, really efficient along the way. They were just okay inside the arc. They were 18 of 44 from 3, which is quite good for this Hawks team, 41% on pretty good volume. And the big thing is they had 35 assists and only 10 turnovers. And I sort of noticed in my quick preview on the show on Tuesday, sort of Monday into Tuesday, but the Jazz are the worst turnover and differential team in the league. They turn the ball over a lot on offense and do not force a lot of turnovers defensively. And the Hawks didn't totally demolish them in that area, but they were +6 in turnover margin in this game. That was not a small thing in sort of pulling off this victory. And really, the Hawks only really had one bad ball security quarter. The third quarter, it was a little bit of a hiccup there. But in the game, only 10 giveaways. That's an excellent, excellent figure after the Hawks have struggled so badly to protect the ball in recent days. They didn't get to the line a lot in this one. They were kind of passive at times, but not too much to complain about offensively, other than the bench was a little bit spotty for most of the night. But they did get 4 threes out of the bench in the fourth quarter that were definitely big at the time. And it's kind of funny. The first half, the Hawks were just tremendous in the possession game. They didn't shoot it incredibly well before halftime, but they only had 2 turnovers, and they were really good on the opposite glass as well. So they just won on the margins in that first half. In the second half, the margins kind of slipped, but they made more shots. They made more threes, and that kind of papered over things. I think they actually made 11 threes in the second half on a pretty good rate. So overall, like, Trae was the headliner, obviously, and we'll get into this more later on when I talk about individual players, but 24 points, 20 assists, and 2 turnovers for Trae. He was awesome in this one. But he wasn't alone. The Hawks offensively were really balanced. They had 7 guys in double figures, 8 guys with 9 points or more for Atlanta. Only Okongwu, of the 9 guys who played, scored fewer than 9 points for the Hawks. So a pretty good balanced game. Trae's making everybody look good with his passing, as he often does. And offensively, again, it wasn't perfect, but not too much to complain about on that end of the floor. Now, defensively, it was not particularly impressive, both in the eye test and in the stats. They had a 120 defensive rating in a game against a team that's not terrible offensively. They're better on offense than defense this year in Utah, but still. And the Jazz did make some shots. I'll say that. They actually shot 19 of 48 from three, even with a rough second half shooting for Utah. They were really hot early in this one. And Lauri Markkanen ends this game with 35 points on 24 shooting possessions, which is really good. And, the Hawks allowed 40 3-point attempts. That's actually just too many in general, too many open ones, I thought, for the Hawks defense on the perimeter. And Markkanen is a very good player. I don't think he's a superstar player, but he's a really good player. And if you watch him closely, he is a pure play finisher. What I mean is he doesn't really pass. He's not a creator for other people. He's not a huge creator like off the bounce. He is a great shooter who happens to be 6'11", 7 feet tall, and a good finisher around the rim when he needs to be. And that was evidence here. He had 35 points and 1 assist in this game. And that's the scouting report. That's not out of the ordinary for the Hawks to have seen this from Markkanen. And yeah, it's tough to guard him at his size. I think if Jalen had played, it would have been Jalen's matchup a lot of the night. So that's at least notable too. But the Hawks allowed him to get wherever he wanted to in this game far too often. And yeah, he made a lot of shots. But still, the Hawks just not quite good enough on the perimeter at times. I thought Hunter really struggled defensively in this game. Ricochet did fine, but not like a game-changing performance for him defensively. Then you throw in Bogey, you throw in Garrison Matthews. Like, they had some defensive issues along the way. And with Dyson being by far the best defender, Dyson is not really well-suited to guarding Lauri Markkanen. Like, you could put him on him, but it's not going to use Dyson's strengths. You need one of your bigger forwards to do this, and they didn't really have that guy in this game. So I thought Zach did the best job overall, but that was probably the biggest weakness individually defensively in this game. The strength on defense was actually at the rim. The Jazz end this game with 38 points in the paint. That's a really, really low number. They shot 44% on twos and only 47.8% at the rim. That is a very, very low number. So credit to Capella and Okongwu in particular, rim protecting in this game. I thought the centers were really good defensively most of the night. There were some hiccups in the fourth quarter. I thought Clint was not the best in the fourth necessarily, but before that, I thought they were both really good defensively in this game. Offensively, Okongwu had a night to forget, honestly. But defensively, the two of them combined for, I think it was 7 blocks in this one. They rebounded the ball well most of the night. And, just good defense at the point of attack. And, not the point of attack, at the back line. Point of attack, not so good in this game other than Dyson. As a team, the Hawks blocked 11 shots. So rim protection was not the issue. It was more of the perimeter stuff. And look, they navigated this one. Old pal Patty Mills has a season high 13 points off the bench for Utah. It was like that kind of night in some respects. And credit to the Jazz, they were actually pretty, I thought, versatile and like resilient to come back from being down big early on a team that's not going anywhere. They're well coached by Will Hardy. It was a physical game as well, which kind of probably favored them, I thought, overall. But look, one more time here before we sort of get into more of the details in this game. This is one of those nights where I always say on the podcast for a reason, it's not easy to win on the road, especially earlier in the season. Like, yeah, in April, some teams are just done and they might roll over for you. The Jazz played hard in this game, and you're on the road without Jalen. And the Hawks, I think, even including this game, especially before this game, the Hawks were still like minus 13 net rating with Jalen off the floor this year. Like, they're not a good team without Jalen. That's just kind of where they are right now. But to go on the road, get a win, Trae was awesome, and that's kind of where you leave this one. So we'll get into how it unfolded with more detail in a second. But a win is a win is a win was what I would say. Even if the Hawks had some frustrating moments, it wasn't the best coach game, I didn't think, from Quinn Snyder. Like, there's stuff to get to that I'll touch on later on. But hey, it's a win, and it's a skid-busting victory for the Hawks as well. All right, we'll get into how the game flow happened. Then later on in the podcast, my individual player breakdowns. First, though, a word from our partners on the show. I want to take a moment right now to introduce you to a brand new mobile game that I'm really excited about. It's called Ultimate College Basketball HC. If you ever dreamed about being a college basketball head coach, this is your chance to step into those shoes in a virtual setting. At Ultimate College Basketball HC, you control every detail of your program. That includes recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, overseeing training camps, handling NIL deals in the modern era, and managing scholarships. It's all in your hands on this one. And when it comes to game time, also you get to draw offensive plays, set up your strategies, and the way you play just won't actually affect this current season. It actually shapes the future of the school's basketball program that you are taking over in this setting. It's a game that actually lets you feel the weight of what it means to be a head coach and lead your team to glory. And we have a special offer for you as well for Locked On listeners. And that promo code is Locked On CBB. That's all caps, Locked On CBB, inside the game store to get a free boost for your program. It's a perfect way to kickstart your coaching career and to download the Ultimate College Basketball HC Just visit ultimate-cbb.com or look it up in the App Store. That's one more time, ultimate-cbb.com or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Basketball HD. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, we'll dive in now to how this game unfolded. And Vit Krejci gets to start in place of Jalen Johnson. Once again, they had Ricochet on Markkanen at the beginning of the game and oftentimes throughout this one, although they did not close that way, which we'll come back to later on. It was a generally balanced game in terms of minutes. I thought, 8 guys played 22 minutes or more. Only Garrison Matthews played 19. He was the 9th man in this game. No David Roddy, which I thought was the right decision for Atlanta. The Hawks played with really good pace, I thought, early in this game, and they were actually, again, up by 16 points at one point in that first half. Rotationally, it was all Hunter and Bogey and Conlon coming in together with Trae taking his first break, and they brought Garrison in for Vit Krejci. I wanted to note this. The Hawks went offense heavy with their lineups in this game, and honestly, they played about as offensive focused as they possibly could without Trae or Jalen available. When Trae slipped on the bench and Jalen's out of the game, they played a lineup with Dyson as the point guard, with Bogey and Garrison both on the wings, Hunter at the 4, and a Kongu. Basically, that group can't stop anybody probably, even with Dyson on the court, but offensively, that's about as good as you can do without Trae. And to their credit, it was night and day offensively from this game without Trae to the game on Saturday without Trae, when the Hawks just could not function against the Clippers. Tonight, they were able to be okay offensively without Trae. They weren't good, but they were okay. And then defensively, they gave some back, but it was more of a stay afloat. They were only -1 on the bench with Trae, which is good. Elsewhere, I think I mentioned before, but I like that they just went smaller with the wings and did not play David Roddy. Now, I say small. Roddy is actually shorter than like Vit, for instance, but Roddy is more of a pseudo big. I like that just kind of lean into Garrison. Like Garrison's got weaknesses too, but at least his strength's a little bit more pronounced, etc. To the rest of the game flow here, the Hawks had a 13-3 run in the first quarter. They actually opened up 11 of 15 on twos with 10 assists and like 8 minutes. But then the Jazz got going. They actually made 4 threes in a row in about 75 seconds, I would say, to cut the lead from 15 or 16 down to like 2 or 3. The Hawks were still by 4 points at the end of the first quarter, despite Utah making 9 threes in the first quarter. So at that point, I actually felt pretty good about the Hawks because they were getting barraged by the Jazz and still leading. Old pal Patty Mills had 9 points. The Jazz didn't make a 2-point shot for like 6 minutes. Only made 2 in the entire first quarter. The Hawks, though, had 0 turnovers in the first quarter and played really well offensively, as I said before. Then they had a big run, a 14-2 run in the second to go by 16 points. Ricochet had a nice stretch. He actually had a big dunk and a corner 3. But the Jazz kept making threes, and they got it back to single digits pretty quickly. At one point, Utah was 12 of 23 from 3, which is 50+%, and 4 of 18 from 2 in that stretch. Just a wild, wild thing there. And Utah only makes 14 threes per game. It did cool off, but it was probably a little bit too late for where the Hawks wanted to be. It was like a 10-point game for like most of the second quarter, and then there was an ugly stretch. There was one great pass by Trae that actually made the rounds nationally to Capella for a dunk. But that was really the only positive play for a while. They had 2 points and like 5 possessions on offense. Bogey got called for this like ridiculous off-ball foul when he actually just ran down the court and got tangled up. That led to 2 free points for the Jazz because they were in the bonus at that point, and the lead was down to 3 at halftime. The big thing was that Utah hit 5 more threes than Atlanta did in the first half, which basically explained the margin, at least to me. The Hawks had a good offensive rating in the first half, but too many fouls, and then Markkanen got going with 24 points by halftime. And then in the third quarter, Utah made 3 more threes and they actually led the game early in the third. A couple minutes later, the Hawks got kind of a gift with 2 free points from technical fouls on Will Hardy and Colin Sexton. Basically 4-point possession because Trae got to the line right after that as well. Trae, how about this? Trae assisted or scored on the first 21 points of the third quarter for the Hawks, which is every point until he sat on the bench for his first break. So he was totally engrossed in that period. And the Hawks were up 6 without with Trae off the floor. Sorry, when he went to the bench. And then the next 2 minutes went very badly. Quinn called timeout, got Trae back in the game. The game flow was much more physical. I think I alluded to that earlier, but Utah took advantage of that. I think to their credit, they played harder than the Hawks did for a lot of the time in the second half. They were more physical, and the Hawks did not sort of react to that well. They had 6 turnovers in that third quarter. They were able to kind of hold on to the lead most of the way, but nothing really comfortable there. Quinn called a challenge early in the fourth quarter on a foul by Kongwu. It was not a high leverage moment, but Kongwu kind of got hit in the face, which probably contributed to Quinn challenging it. He technically won the challenge in a weird way, but the foul was given to Trae instead of Kongwu, because it's kind of a strange, like this new way of challenging and the new system there. But Utah took the lead again there. I thought notably, I think I said this before, but the Hawks got some big shots from guys who had not played well to that stretch. Garrison and Bogey hit threes in the fourth quarter. Kongwu actually had his first, I think his only field goal of the game. Yeah, his only field goal of the game was a big dunk from Trae early in the fourth. And then they got a huge gift from Micah Potter of the Jazz, who actually had this like terrible traveling violation on a fast break in the fourth quarter. Now, I'll go to the middle of the quarter now. The Hawks were actually up by 5 with 5 minutes to go. Then Markkanen had five straight points to tie the game. A couple of traded buckets there. The Hawks were actually down 2 with 3:30 to go into a timeout by Quinn. They went back to Bogey after that, and he was rewarding them for a 3 right away for the lead. He wasn't very good in this game, but he made a couple big shots in that fourth quarter. Trade a couple of big shots as well. Hit a tough 3, go by 2. Capella had a nice contest on Lauri, actually to force a miss, but then Bogey tried to post up for like way too long without shooting and kind of tossed the flaming bag to Clint, who was still in the lane, and Clint thought he was going to shoot it. 3-second violation. Shouts to my guy Bob Rathman, who I know will hear this podcast. He was very not happy about that call. I was on his side. Letter of the law, it was 3 seconds, but it's like not one you usually don't ever see call with like until like 2.5 minutes to go in the game. That's Bob's point, and I kind of agree with it. Anyway, the Jazz did score after that to tie the game. Hunter made a big 3 after that. The Jazz did score. And I'll note this now because I think people were talking about this a lot after the game. I thought Capella was like pretty darn good for most of the night and not very good at the end of the game. I think it's probably just too overzealous down the stretch, going for blocks and leaving the back line a little bit vulnerable on the glass in particular. Some of the issues were point of attack too was not great, but he got a little bit over aggressive, I thought, at the end of the game, which kind of led to some issues down the stretch. It was still talked about way too much. I thought he was pretty good in this game overall, but that was accurate down the stretch. Trae then finally missed a shot, actually missed a floater, but then drew a foul on Markkanen defensively at a good time there. Hunter had a 3 in the air that would have probably won the game, honestly, with 40 seconds to go. He misses it, but the Jazz did return the favor. I think Lauri missed the 3 right after that to kind of make it a wash. And then here's the crunch time moment. So Atlanta's up 1 with a 6-second differential on the shot clock. They call timeout, which I actually didn't like. It was their last timeout. They didn't have to do it. They kind of did it like maybe out of procedure or whatever. I didn't love that timeout by Quinn. But Utah fouls. They weren't in the bonus yet, so they had to inbound again. They almost had a disastrous inbounds play where it was deflected by the Jazz, almost stolen. That would have been a bad way to lose this game. But they eventually got to Trae, who makes both free throws with 9 seconds to go. So now you're up by 3. Timeout by Utah, then it gets weird. So if you didn't watch this whole sequence, this is what happened. I'm sure you've probably seen this play by now, but Dyson nearly steals the inbounds to seal the game. But then Sexton beats both Dyson and Veet to the ball, goes to the three-point line, and makes a pretty tough shot to tie the game. Now, there was a debate happening pre, during, after about whether the Hawks were going to foul, whether they should have fouled, because you're up by 3. There's this never-ending debate about that. I think the Hawks, the way they played it, probably weren't going to foul, but I wasn't 100% sure of that. It's harder to foul when you have no timeouts. Keep that in mind too, which is a big thing. But big shot by Sexton. That's, tip your cap to him. Dyson almost stole the play, but like I think it also kind of threw the Hawks off a little bit that he deflected the ball. They were out of position a little bit at that point in time. Also, there was an argument happening that I saw on social media about whether Trae should have been in the game or not defensively, because obviously he was on the floor on defense. But the Hawks usually leave Trae in if it will be to help them to have him in on offense right after that. Like if you get a stop, for instance, and have to have somebody get fouled, they want Trae at the line. Or if you have to have, ball handling or whatever, they want Trae out there for, knowledge and like operational stuff, which it makes sense to me. And by the way, his defense was not the problem on that possession, so it actually worked out pretty well for them. And of course, they're bailed out. So Sexton hits the 3. We're all thinking overtime at that point in time, me included. Everybody is, except for Trae. So Trae gets 2 or 3 dribbles, pulls up. I'm not saying that they should have guarded him more because it's like hard to contest a 50-footer. But if you've ever been to an NBA practice, even a fake practice, like an open practice or whatever, but NBA players do practice half-court shots, like a lot, especially stars. Like Trae takes half-court shots a lot in his life. Now, is he going to make a lot of them in an NBA game? No. But like, I think people probably underestimate the percentage Trae would shoot on that shot. I'm not saying he makes half of it. He doesn't. But like, he was in rhythm. It was a good look. I think he knew it was good right away, or at least close to it right away. The celebration's on, the shiver, all the stuff. A wild play. I mean, I don't know what to even say. Like, it was like, do the Hawks deserve to win this game? Like, kind of not, but kind of, they weren't awful on this one, but the ending was just, it happened so fast, too. There was no timeout in between. It was 3 by Sexton, 50-footer by Trae, walk-off celebration, and on to Phoenix. I thought it was a good call by Ryan Oliver, who was in the booth with Bob tonight. Just, all right, get out of here. Let's get on the bus. We're going to Phoenix. And that's the way the Hawks probably felt about that at that point in time. So, yeah. Look, I didn't think it was the best ending to this game for the Hawks. Like, for instance, I thought Ricochet should have played more. I've had that thought a lot this season. I don't know if there's like a faux minutes restriction for him at some point, but I thought he was one of the better options and didn't play a lot down the stretch. It was a little bit too much bogey late in the game, I thought, for the Hawks as well. Issues down, like, I think it sometimes gets, in fact, oftentimes gets off the rails with like blame of rotations and stuff, like the reason stuff happens. But I didn't love the way the Hawks approached the end of game. But Trae bails them out, and they win the game. They get out of there, and again, escaping with a road win is nothing to sneeze at, even if it was not the previous one on the way. All right. I'll have more of my analysis coming up in a second when it comes to the player-by-player evaluations, and there is plenty to get to from this one on all the players and stuff, and all that's coming up in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite moments this year, actually, was actually attending a concert. The energy and excitement there at the venue was really awesome and memorable, to be sure. And I get to actually makes it easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, which is Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff, only shows you the incredible deals and great seats. No wasting time searching through thousands of different tickets they actually don't want. Recently, I looked for tickets for a football game, honestly, using the Gametime app, and we give that pick. Actually found great deals, and even could see the view from my seat before buying that seat, which is for me a huge value add that you can have at Gametime. The super deal was also particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices, plus the app's all-in pricing. Shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at the end of the process, which is honestly huge in the ticket buying space. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download that app and create an account. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, and 9 guys appeared in this one for Atlanta. People asking for a Jalen Johnson update. I don't really have one for you. The only thing that changed on Jalen while we're here is that he went from right shoulder soreness to right shoulder inflammation on the official listing. That is all the Hawks have said. If you have not followed this closely, Quinn Snyder does not really like to and kind of basically refuses to give any updates on player injuries. The training staff doesn't really give you much either, so we're all kind of flying blind. Will he play on Thursday? We just have no way of knowing at this point in time. Obviously, it's good that we're able to give him another day today while still winning, but beyond that, it's kind of a guessing game at this point. Elsewhere, the guys who did play, 9 guys appeared. Garrison might be playing the least with 19 minutes off the bench. He actually had 9 points on 4 of 13 shooting. He took 13 shots in 19 minutes, which I actually don't mind. Like, he didn't shoot the ball well in this game, and I found there's a direct correlation between Garrison makes shots, people like him. If he misses shots, people hate him. It's kind of what happens when you're a shooting specialist. But he made a big shot in the fourth quarter, but he was only 3. It was actually 3 of 5 on 2s, but 1 of 8 from 3, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, a block. I thought Garrison did not play poorly in this game. Like, he's not a great defender, obviously, but I actually wanted to be more aggressive. So the nights that frustrate me with Garrison are when he only takes 1 shot in 20 minutes. I'd actually rather him go this way, but just make more shots. That's kind of where I put it there. But he did his job mostly in this game. And again, I like the decision to play him over Roddy. Even just go a little bit smaller, it's fine. Okongwu, 23 minutes for Onyeka, 2 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 4 blocks for Onyeka. Offensively, it was kind of a lost game. He just didn't do much of anything. It was 1 of 5 from the floor, like a weird one. But defensively, it actually was, I think, better than usual. I shouldn't say almost always. Most of the time, what happens with the Hawks, both in quality and with the numbers, is when Okongwu plays, they're better on offense, especially when Trae plays with Okongwu. And when Capella plays, they're better on defense. And that is almost always the case, or at least regularly the case. That's their overall path this year. Defense better with Capella, offense better with Okongwu, which makes sense. Capella's a better defender than Okongwu. Okongwu's a better offensive player than Capella. Makes total sense. In this game, it actually flipped. They were better defensively with Okongwu on the on-off numbers and better offensively with Clint. I don't know what that means. It's a one-game sample size, but I thought it also played in the individual play stuff. Like I thought Okongwu's offense was not great, but his defense was actually quite good in this game. So there you go. Again, I said it before, but the defense was pretty strong from the centers overall. Bogey, look, Bogey's got to be better for sure. 11 points, 3 assists. Did have 3 threes, including 2 in the fourth quarter. So I'll stop now and just say, like, he did make 2 big shots in the fourth. Overall, Bogey was not good in this game. And I think that everyone knows this. Like, I have been a long time advocate of when Bogey is right, Bogey is hugely valuable. Last year, a great example. He was the best on-off guy for the Hawks. He had a great season last year. He was healthy all season long. Right now, he doesn't look like he's fully healthy, and he's not playing well. And both can be true at the same time. At his age, you never want to just assume it's going to bounce back. I still think people are like bailing on him too early as like he's definitely washed or cooked or whatever. I wouldn't say that. He's not playing well this year. That is obviously and objectively the case. That includes tonight. He actually did make 2 big shots, though, and we'll leave it there. DeAndre Hunter, weird game. So he bounced back as a scorer in this one. He had a couple of rough ones in recent days. And tonight he had 17 points on 11 shots. He was 1 of 4 on 2s, but 4 of 7 from 3. 4 rebounds and an assist. Hunter's defense was not good at all in this one, I didn't think. I think Hunter, the stuff that he does subtly defensively gets undervalued, and his on-ball defense actually gets overvalued sometimes. Tonight, I didn't love his defense, generally speaking. I thought he was okay on offense because the shooting kind of manifested a little bit, but he did not play well, I didn't think, despite having a relatively efficient 17-point game off a bench. He wasn't a disaster, just wasn't particularly good, I didn't think. To the starters. V. Krejci, 22 minutes, 13 points, 4 rebounds, had a steal, 4 fouls, plus 7. I thought Veet was actually pretty good in this one. Hit 3 threes. That's a big thing for Veet. No assists is actually surprising, but 27 assists combined from Trae and Dyson, so there weren't that many assists to go around. I thought he was better than he's been recently. Didn't play a ton, but played some crunch time, honestly. He was out there at the end. I thought Veet was pretty okay, which is good. It helps to be in a better role. They actually, I think on all of the non-Trae minutes, it was Dyson at point guard or at least close to it. So they've kind of maybe switched to that a little bit more. We'll see if that happens when Jalen comes back or not. But I thought Veet did his job in this game. Ricochet, 14 points, 6 rebounds. I thought he played really well, honestly. 4 of 10 on 2s is not great, but it's fine. 2 of 4 from 3, obviously solid. One note here, I actually shared it during the game on social media. Ricochet is a strongly above average corner three-point shooter this year. He's making like 43% on corner threes. Now, not a huge sample size by any means, but in the corner, he's making them. That's anecdotal, but it's also accurate in the numbers. The non-corner threes have been a disaster for Ricochet. Now, somebody asked me during the game, like, do you think that's going to improve? It almost has to. I think he's shooting like 18% on non-corner threes. Like, it's a disaster. But that's going to come up. Hopefully that comes up and the corner percentage kind of stabilizes. It's not like unsustainable. He's shooting like, I think it's like a 70th percentile from the corners. So if you hold that and then raise the other one up, you'll be in better shape. But I thought he was really good in this game, honestly. Like, I think he should have played more down the stretch, which I sort of alluded to earlier. But did his job on both ends of the floor, and I thought was a quality night for the number 1 overall pick. Clint Capella, 18 points, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks. He was 9-11 from the field in this one. No free throw attempts. I thought Clint, until the fourth quarter, or at least until like late in the fourth quarter, was actually quite good in this game. He was a little bit more springy with his legs. I'm sure, at his age, especially as a center, you have nights where you feel it, nights you don't feel it. I think he looked good athletically tonight. A couple of big dunks along the way, finished around the rim effectively. Defensively had some big blocks. He, like I said before, got a little bit overzealous late in the game, I thought. But I thought until then was good. And defensively, he and Okongwu were good in this game. Offensively, like Clint is very limited, obviously, but 18 points on 11 shots. Can't argue with that. So I thought he had a pretty good game on the whole. And then Dyson Daniels had a big one as well, kind of quietly because of Trae's big night. But Dyson had 16 points, 7 assists. That's a big number for him. Of course, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He's awesome at that. 6 rebounds. He was 5 of 8 on 2s, 2 of 4 from 3. Like, he was good in this game. Now, and usually I would point this out, like on nights where Dyson doesn't have anybody to kind of take away defensively, he can be a little bit out of place, not in a bad way, but usually he's maximized on nights where he has like a big defensive assignment. And yeah, Colin Sexton's a good player, and he had Sexton for part of this game, but like the big assignment was Lauri, and he couldn't really do that. At least he wouldn't really do that. I thought Dyson did a good job driving. He did a good job with his floater. Good passing game. Obviously, the steals and the blocks. Like, I thought he was really good on the whole. And he, along with Trae, were the only two guys that played more than 28 minutes were Dyson and Trae. And that made total sense to me, honestly. And then finally, Trae Young. So there's a guy that I made fun of a little bit in the Locked On Hawks YouTube comments that is what's been called the show Locked On Trae, because I talk about Trae so much. I mean, he's the best player on the team. What do you want me to do? Sorry to that guy, because obviously it's a big night for Trae after that conversation happened this week. 24 points, 20 assists, 2 turnovers. Yeah, that's pretty darn good for Trae Young. +4 on the game. Only actually 3 of 10 from 3. My one complaint for Trae in this game was that I think he took 2 shots from 3 that I didn't like. He took 2 that were probably too aggressive. Quinn kind of laughed about that a little bit after the game too, kind of snuck it in there in his press conference. There were 2 that were probably too aggressive. Everything else was pretty darn good. Even defensively, he competed in this game. I think he and Colin Sexton have a little rivalry going back to like college days even, and he got up for that one a little bit, played good defense. He was invested defensively. The passing speaks for itself. I, even before the game, shared on social media, like Trae is leading in basically every single passing category in the NBA this year. Assists per game, assists total, points created off of assists. Also, I think his expected assists are like through the roof, like even more than his actual assists. Also, couple stats for you here. Trae now has 3 games this year with 20 points and 20 assists, including tonight. Now, no one has had 3 in a season since John Stockton in 1990. This is game number 37 for the Hawks. Now, there's no guarantee that Trae's going to have another one of these this year, but no one's had 3 in a year since 1990. He already has 3, and we're not even at a halfway point yet. So obviously that's arbitrary. Like 21 points, 19 assists is still really good too. So 2020 is an arbitrary number, but still that's pretty darn impressive. And how about this one? He was responsible for 76 points tonight. 76 points. He scored 24 points. He assisted on 12 threes for the Hawks. 12. By the way, Trae made 3 threes. So the Hawks made 18 threes as a team. Trae was responsible for 15 of them. Pretty good. And then, of course, he assisted on, I believe it was 8 2-point field goals. So 76 points created for one player in one game. And they still had to win this game on a walk-off by Trae. So, yeah, obviously he was really good. No surprise there. Utah's not a good defensive team. That's something I said earlier. I'll say it one more time. Like, you have to grade on a curve a little bit for the Hawks offensively in this game. But, yeah. Sometimes it's nice to have a superstar player, and Trae was the superstar in this game, and that is part of the reason why the Hawks won this one, because obviously, the game winner speaks for itself, but 20 assists and all that stuff, so we'll leave it there for now. Okay, with this narrow, memorable roller coaster victory out of the way, the Hawks now close up, finally, their 2-week, 6-game road trip with a trip to Phoenix on Thursday. The Suns, by the way, play in Atlanta 5 days later, which is just a very strange thing. Phoenix has a very odd schedule right now. Phoenix has been on the East Coast this week. They played Indiana, Philly, Charlotte. Then they go back to Phoenix for 3 games. Then they go back to the East Coast. And by the way, they're not playing well at all. I believe they have now lost 8 of their last 10. They're a little bit underwater. I will say, though, Phoenix is a lot better than Utah. So that is going to be a challenge. We'll see if Jalen plays. We'll see how the Hawks respond to this one. But at the very least, the Hawks are now going to be at least 2-4 on the road trip. And 2-4 isn't good, but you just wanted to avoid disaster. These 2-week road trips are very, very difficult to navigate, and the Hawks have now ensured a non-disastrous trip. Obviously, it'd be better to win the 3rd game, be 3-3, be all full steam ahead, but we'll see how that goes on Thursday. All right, that's all I have, everybody. I could have gone longer probably, but people would yell at me that are my bosses on the show, so I'll stop right now. Please subscribe to this podcast. Anywhere you find podcasts, please check us out at Locked On Hawks on Apple, on Spotify, on Amazon Music, et cetera, et cetera. Plus, we're on YouTube. Please like the video as you're watching us there. Please tell your friends about the podcast as well. Crucially, help us to spread the word about the pod. We're on social media. We're on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. I am there as well at BT Rowland. I'm also personally at Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And then my non-podcast Hawks coverage can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. TBD on the next show. It will either be a show on Wednesday night, or it'll be the next show will be after the game on Thursday. Not entirely sure yet. I will have 2 shows at some point between now and Saturday. So I don't know if it's going to be Wednesday night or Friday night. I'll do an extra one, but stay tuned for that. I'll have more content coming your way. So please subscribe. You have the show delivered directly to you if you do that. And enjoy your Wednesday now as I'm recording this podcast at like 1 a.m. So my apologies for being a little bit loopy at this hour, but stay tuned, everybody. I appreciate you listening to the podcast, and we'll see you all next time.